But right now, really happy to have back on Ali Velshi. That's right, award-winning journalist, business correspondent, has written books on finance, and host of Velshi on MSNBC from 10 a.m. to noon, which is expanding starting May 3rd. He's hosting all day. It's like 12 hours of Ali. It's like a telethon every day with Ali. You're an immigrant. This is the immigrant work ethic. Like Ali, you got the whole weekend. Right. Do whatever you want. Good to see you, my friend.
It's good to be back with you.
So by the way, your show's going to be 3 hours a day? On the weekend?
Yeah, 3 hours on Saturday, 3 hours on Sunday. It's endurance. That's now. Like now it's all about endurance.
Every night, 3 hours. Just so you know, okay, buddy. This is what they do to us. No,
that's it.
My show is 6 to 9 every night, so 5 nights a week. So good to see. I wanted you on, and I'm glad you're here to talk about some of the finance stuff going on.
Sure, yeah.
And what I like about it is that what Ali, the way he explains it, it's not political. This is the real world. And yesterday was an NPR headline. It said, "Sell USA," with a question mark. Why Trump's tariffs may be sparking a historic storm on Wall Street. And this rare event, stocks, U.S. government bonds, and the dollar all taking a hit at the same time. Yeah. I wanted to break it down with you a little bit so people understand why this matter, why it should matter. Even if you have nothing in the market, folks, this really matters to all of us. So first of all, overall, how does Trump's haphazard way, tariff one day, no tariff the next day, I'm making a deal, I'm not making a deal, how does that affect consumers, the economy? Like, why does that matter? It should matter to people.
Well, first of all, it's chaos, right? It's not part of a plan. And there could be a plan that says, hey, we want to bring this kind of manufacturing back to America, and this is how we're going to achieve it, and this is how we're going to use tariffs. He keeps carrying on about tariffs is the most beautiful word in the English language. Just a word, man. It's just a word. In the same way that you can't build a house with just a hammer, right? A hammer is integral to building a house. Tariffs are useful in certain instances, but this isn't following any kind of plan. You mentioned the stocks are down, bonds are down, bond prices are down, and the dollar's down. That doesn't typically happen. The bonds and the dollar work together. And I'll tell you how this works. Usually, and forget regular people, but institutions, governments, sovereign wealth funds, the big money. When the stock market, when they think the stock market's unstable and they move money out of stocks, regular people might just keep it in their savings account or under the mattress or whatever. That's not what the big money does. They move it into something, and that something is usually bonds, right? And there are some bonds in the world that are very safe, Canadian bonds, Swiss bonds, things like that. But there aren't enough Canadian bonds and Swiss bonds. They're not liquid enough. So you move it into U.S. Treasury bonds, bonds issued by the U.S. Treasury. It means it's a loan, right? You're lending the government money because it's the safest loan on earth. And so as you keep buying bonds, if money comes out of the stock market, bond prices go up because the demand for them increases. And the way bonds work is as the price goes up, the interest rate, or what we call the yield, goes down. So that's typically how it happens. What you should have seen a few weeks ago when Donald Trump did his 90% tariffs, stock market drains out, that money goes into bonds, and you should have seen interest rates come down. They didn't. Where'd the money go? Literally, where did the smart money go? Didn't go into the dollar. Historically, it always goes into the dollar. And that means that people think that America might not be stable. The only reason you wouldn't invest in the dollar in a treasury bond is because there's some increasing chance you don't get your money back. At no time in history has that ever happened. The dollar is safe. The American bond is the safest thing there is. When the smart money in the world is saying it's a little risky, then you know you've created so much chaos, you've created so much doubt that people are sitting it out. And this is because it's the tariffs on and off. He wants interest rates to go down. He's maybe going to fire Jerome Powell, the head of the Fed. Maybe he's not. It's just erratic gaslighting nonsense. If it were part of a strategy, I would tell you, I would explain it. I would say, maybe I don't agree with it, but at least I get it. There's no strategy here that I can discern.
And I'm going to get into a little bit to explain why the bonds are important for us. That we'll get to that in a second. But is there another thing here too, just politically, as America moves to more of an autocracy and less of a democracy? Are investors who live in democratic nations going, I wouldn't put money in Egypt's bonds, like you would see Erdogan or Orbán?
Correct. So if you want to, let's say Turkey wants to do some big project, a dam or something like that, investors are a little afraid. So you get things like the World Bank or the IMF who go in and they sort of guarantee that, okay, you'll get paid back on this thing because
Mhm.
you need that extra level of guarantee. America doesn't need an extra level of guarantee. Government says you can build a factory, you can build a factory. Your factory will be there till you tear the factory down. That's doesn't
Right.
matter who the president is and who the administration is. There's rule of law. You follow the rules, things will be stable. That's exactly what's happening. People are wondering, I'm putting money in America. Who knows what the rules will be? Who knows if I can get employees? Who knows if one day the government will roll in, take all my employees who are American citizens and ship them somewhere else? We just don't know how it's happening. And stability is the most underrated thing in the world. People like politicians who are flashy and interesting and big and blustery, but actually markets and investors like stability, which is why in Canada, they're going to take a guy who was the governor of the central bank, the Jerome Powell equivalent
Yeah.
in Canada, and the
Yeah.
governor of the Bank of England. No one's ever been the governor of two different countries' central banks. He's that good. He's an economist. Not the world's most exciting guy, Mark Carney. He's going to win a
No.
majority government in a few weeks in Canada because Canadians are looking at America saying, you can keep your weird. We're not looking at any of this for any of this populist nonsense. We just want normal. America does not have normal right now.
No, and I want to play a short clip for you. I played it earlier in the show. Nina Jankowicz, you might know that name.
Yep.
She was
Yeah, of
the
course.
Biden tapped her for a short time to be disinformation expert. She
Yep.
testified before the European Parliament today in Brussels. And she literally said, I'll play the clip, and it's almost jaw dropping because she's talking about Russia. That's why she's there. But then she turns to the United States of America. Let's play this clip, clip number 5, please.
The United States has now become the largest lobbyist for these multi-billion-dollar corporations and is harassing any nation or body that aims to conduct oversight or require transparency of them. Neither Washington nor the social media platforms it has captured are interested in preserving democracy. They are interested in maintaining their power and hoarding profits. And so before I describe the details of Russia's recent online influence campaigns, I would like to call upon you to stand firm against another autocracy, the United States of America. The Trump administration is undoubtedly preparing a pressure campaign to force EU institutions to roll back regulation like the DSA, to end support for Ukraine, to stop holding Russia to account. Do not capitulate. Hold the line. Doing so is the clearest signal the European Union could send to Russia and other adversaries that it will not stop fighting to preserve democracy at home and around the world.
She testified in Brussels before the EU Parliament that the United States of America is now an autocracy and warning them. And I'm sure that gets pressed there as well. Headlines we're talking about finance or investors see this. That's got to scare them. And also in a bigger picture, it's deeply concerning what we're hearing America talked about the same way we talked about Hungary or Egypt or
Turkey,
Putin almost.
India.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
This is where
And
we are.
I only stop short of saying it's an autocracy because I don't want people to forget that the most important and most potent person in American politics is you, right? The citizen.
Right.
At the moment, we still have agency, right? In the same way that I would tell Hungarians and Turks and Indians, unlike Russians and Chinese and Iranians, who don't really have democracy. They hold elections in all of those countries, but they don't have real agency. We actually do. But boy, are we close. Boy, are we heading in that direction. There's a weird confluence of both autocracy and oligarchy, which is what Nina was talking about, right? The companies, these companies that are like, hey, in exchange for profits and more power and no regulation, I'm going to kind of go along with your crazy stuff that you're doing. It's really terrible, Dean. It's really terrible. And there may be lots of valid reasons why people around the world don't like America and they don't like some of its foreign policies or whatever the case may be. But they generally don't think America's crazy and unhinged and chaotic, right? And look at China. You may not like China. You have valid reasons to not like China and its trade habits, but nobody calls China crazy. Nobody thinks they're chaotic. They think it all through. They've got a plan. And while we're busy doing what we're doing and losing our soft power around the world, guess what? China's everywhere. They're going into all of these countries saying, what do you need? You got debt, you got this, you need ports, you need infrastructure. We'll take care of it. We're losing economic influence. We're losing political influence. We could be losing military influence because of all the NATO Russia nonsense that's going on. And we're now not thought of as stable. This is incredibly serious, but I will say it's stoppable. And it needs people to go out and protest. It needs people to make sure that they don't play around with this nonsense anymore next time there's an election. There's a possibility we could get this back on track. But you heard Steve Bannon. He's planning for January 20th, 2029, when he says Donald Trump will be sworn in for a third term. He says he's working on 3 distinct plans to make that happen. Don't say you weren't working.
I'm working on 10 different plans not to make that happen. So I've got my 10 to Bannon's 3. I'm chatting with Ali Velshi from MSNBC.
Deal.
I don't see from a legal point of view, we can't amend the Constitution, but I can see Trump trying to remain in office beyond his term and remaining there through 2029 and through 2030. I said to Abe, I was on Eamon's show. I said, Donald Trump does not leave office alive. And he looked at me kind of weird. I go, Eamon, that's the reality. I understand that. And look, and just so it's clear, the point you made, Ali, we are not an autocracy yet where our vote doesn't matter, our voice doesn't matter. Right. I could not agree with you more. We are heading down the path of autocracy. We have an autocratic government where China is methodical in what they're doing. Trump and the Project 2025 people around him are very methodical. It's not Trump. It's these Project 2025 guys writing executive orders. They have a vision for America. They want to re-envision America.
Dean. They wrote it in a 922-page book, which you'll remember I covered every week. I took a chapter or a topic and I covered it. They're doing exactly what they said they would do. Donald Trump disavowed it. He said, I got nothing to do with Project 2025. It's not my document. It's got nothing to do with the Heritage Foundation. He disavowed it. And guess what? It's all happening. The guy who wrote it, who spearheaded it, Russell Vought, He's running 2 departments. He's running the the Office of Management and Budget at the White House, and he's running the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I mean, they told us what they were going to do. So that's what I remind people. Most autocracies and dictatorships, by the way, do not come about by revolution. Most are people who just give up power to folks like this. So we are doing what they did in Italy, what they did in Germany. We're doing the same thing. We're just giving up our power little by little.
So, and by the way, I played some clips earlier. Lawrence Tribe was on today. I know Lawrence has been on your show a lot, warning about the academic institutions, warning this is from the authoritarian playbook. And it's something I've talked about for a long time on this show now, for months. There's no originality. It's banality. It's the banality of evil. It's the banality of dictators. And banality, again, just unoriginal. They just follow the same playbook because it works. So they go, okay, let's take over the courts. Let's take over the media. Let's take over the school, academia, little by little, chip away at dissent, cause people to self-censor. Self-censorship is the autocrat's best friend. But let's get back to the money thing for a second. So right now you're seeing confidence being lost in the U.S. dollar. Dollar is at a 9-year low. What was it? Just on Monday, it made uptick because yesterday and today. Why should that concern people listening? If they're like, well, I don't care what the dollar is worth. I know what it's worth in the U.S. Why does it matter if people are losing confidence in the U.S. dollar?
Yeah, and it's not about whether you're traveling to Europe and the deal's not as good. That's not the relevant part. There are 3 things going on here. First of all, as I said, when the bonds sell off, people are not buying the dollar. They're not buying the U.S. Treasury. So the prices go down. The interest rate goes up. So that affects your interest rate. If you're on a variable rate mortgage or any kind of variable rate loan, it goes up. Even if you're not, even a fixed rate mortgage hit the highest level it's been at, I think about a week ago, 7% for a 30-year fixed mortgage. So it costs you real money on all of your stuff. Secondly, until Donald Trump changes all of this, we're still a country that imports more than it exports, right? So think about it. You import things, you pay in dollars. So a weaker dollar means you have to pay more of them to get the same thing, including oil, by the way, because the world works on the U.S. dollar. So everything's priced in dollars. So when it's worth less, when the dollar's worth less, we have to pay more for it. So there are a lot of reasons why you don't want that to happen. There are some economic arguments for wanting a weaker dollar, and that is largely to do with the fact that if your currency is cheaper, the things you manufacture are cheaper in other countries. It is not, if the government were employing that as part of an actual strategy, again, I would tell you, you can agree with it or not, but the strategy is to lower the dollar. That's not the strategy here. Or at least that's not the articulated strategy of either the government or the Federal Reserve. So the fact that the dollar is sinking inadvertently is yet another sign that some people are saying the U.S. dollar is not my preferred choice of where to go in a time of danger. That's very worrisome. China would like to be the currency. The BRICS countries are all trying to come up with an alternative currency. Nobody's done so yet. Some people have said it's going to be cryptocurrency. It's not. Some people think it's gold. It's not. There aren't enough Canadian dollars and Swiss francs in the world to buy to offset it. So the bottom line is, for now, there aren't a ton of choices other than the US dollar. But in a world where there aren't choices and the dollar's going down, that tells you something. It means people are actually just perhaps not investing their money in anything until they figure out what it is this US government is actually up to.
You know, there were a lot of articles written recently about, could the world choose to not make the US dollar the world's currency anymore? And what I found interesting is that China, in some of their dealings with Brazil and other countries, already make their currency. You got to do everything in their currency.
Yes, they avoid, correct.
So, yeah. Right. So China is very methodical, folks. We have a chaotic, whatever you want to call them, in the White House, and China's out there eating our lunch. And they're going to, for the next 4 years, who knows how much more power they have, from soft power to their currency being so important. My barber, this is a barbershop talk, my barber was saying he loves stocks. He's like, I'm wondering if Trump really has a plan. I go, what part of the 6 bankruptcies that he had makes you think he has a plan?
I'm like, a plan here.
He's got 34 conviction for falsifying business records. What part of that would make you like, this is the kind of guy I'm going to lean into? I'm like, and he goes, he doesn't have a plan. I go, he doesn't have a plan. If he had a plan, we would debate the plan. There's no plan. Today, tomorrow, we heard today.
The White House said it's the art of the deal, right? They said this is how he negotiates. He says it's going to be 90% tariffs, then he takes it off. It's just not true. I just want to point you to, he says he's going to make a deal with Iran, right, for their nuclear stuff.
Yeah.
You recall we had a deal with Iran, and whatever deal we get is probably going to look a lot like that. That deal took 10 years, Dean. It took 10 years to work out. Only in the last 2, when America got involved, did they do certain things, like they took Iran off the SWIFT system. The SWIFT system is how you do banking transfers. So people couldn't buy or sell things. Can't use an Iranian credit card anywhere in the world. You can't use a foreign credit card in Iran. It put pressure on Iran. They came to the table and we got a deal. Took 2 years after America put the screws to Iran to even get these deals. Donald Trump talks like the deals just fall out of the sky. USMCA, the trade deal between Canada, US, and Mexico, used to be called NAFTA. You know why it changed its name? Donald Trump renegotiated that deal. That's his deal that he went to cancel. Where's the plan here? You're canceling your own deal. We were in the Iran nuclear deal when you became president. You canceled it. You got America out of it. Now you got your guy, Steve Witkoff, who's a developer, apparently negotiating a new deal while he's negotiating Russia and Ukraine peace, while he's trying to figure out Israel and Gaza, where the plan is apparently just to develop condominiums in Gaza. These are the folks who we are trusting to solve the world's problems right now. So yeah, I don't know if there's a plan because I don't have access to it. I'd be awful surprised.
Well, look, and what you just laid out, the world sees and big money sees, and other nations, when their sovereign funds are we going to invest in U.S. bonds? Just so people know, Japan has the biggest holding of our bonds. The second biggest holder is China, with about $750 billion. There are reports that China stopped buying our bonds. I mean, they're trying to screw over Trump as much as possible. He's picked, if this was a different time, we'd be in a hot war. Thank God it's only in a trade war right now. The 1940s, our troops are going over the border.
Yes. Yeah. And by the way, there's talk, it hasn't been confirmed, but there's talk that it was Mark Carney from Canada who went over to Europe and said to a whole bunch of people, let's start dumping U.S. bonds because they have enough of them. The major countries have enough just to scare everybody scare Donald Trump into saying, guys, you're really going to trash the economy. And it's not just our economy. You could trash the global economy. And then there's another problem, Dean, and that is that we still have inflation, and tariffs will probably cause more inflation, right? Because costs of good will go up. The way you fight inflation, if you're the Fed, is you raise interest rates. It's not good, but that's the only way you can fight it. Except we may be getting into a recession because we've got this trade war going on with everybody. And the way you fight a recession, if you're the Fed, is you lower interest rates. You make money cheaper so that people borrow and they invest. You can't fight inflation and a recession at the same time. That's called stagflation. It is almost impossible to get out of. We were stuck in it in the early 70s. Japan was stuck in it for 10 years because there's just no mathematical way to solve that problem. We can always solve a recession. Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it's bad, but then the markets come roaring back, new jobs, new companies. It's called creative destruction. All that happens. Donald Trump is playing with fire here. And that's the whole Jerome Powell thing, because he wants Powell to reduce interest rates. And Powell is saying, let the Fed, like every other central bank in the world, do its job independent of political interference. And Donald Trump's not agreeing to that.
And what about when you add to it that so Donald Trump's doing tariffs, the economy is objectively slowing. It's not terrible, but it's slowing. Then he's cutting government spending and laying off tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of government workers. You don't have to be an expert in the economy to go like, this doesn't make sense, because this is really going to drive your economy slow and really off a cliff.
No, I mean, none of this
Jim
is
Cramer
this
from
is not
Mad Men talked about
theory.
this is real life. This is really a bad combination.
Everybody who knows anything about how they spend their money can figure out how this goes. And look, Canada, the tourism from Canada is a massive industry in the United States. We so depend on tourism from Canada. It's dropped in some places. I think in California, it's dropped off 30%. I mean, this is a massive thing. And by the way, some of that is just Canadians mad at Donald Trump for wanting to make it the 51st state, and some mad about the tariffs. Some is just fear. Some of these Canadians are like, I'm not coming here because I don't know if I'm going to get swept up off the street. God forbid you're a Canadian, you show up in America and you lose your passport. You're going to end up in an El Salvador in prison. I mean, this is real stuff. I guess there's no theory here. There's no economic theory. You don't have to read a single economics book here. Everybody understands why this is not working out. If you want to bring manufacturing back to America, Dean, good goal. And we should discuss what manufacturing we want to bring back, right? Because we put on, when Donald Trump put all his crazy tariffs on before he took them off, the crazy formula he used, he put 50% tariffs on, or maybe 54% on Lesotho, the little landlocked country in South Africa that makes nothing that we would make here. They export us diamonds and clothes that are manufactured by women, generally speaking, in their homes, like jeans and shirts and stuff like that. We're not looking for that job here, and we don't have diamonds here. So why would you why would you do that? Again, not sensible. There are definitely sensible arguments for imposing certain tariffs on certain things coming from China because they dump and they have unfair trade practices. Absolutely true. Why Canada? Why Mexico? Why? This doesn't make sense.
I'm chatting with our friend Ali Velshi. I was on vacation 2 weeks ago, and this is the fun things I read. It was a Canadian American economist, John Kenneth Galbraith, wrote a book called The Great Crash of 1929. And it's a little dry, but it was very helpful to understand how much the market and speculation played a bigger. I didn't understand it fully. Like, it wasn't like the Great Recession, but speculation was the common theme in that. That was real estate speculation. This was a stock market insanity, folks. But look what Hoover did. Economists told him in 1930, don't sign Smoot-Hawley. Don't do this. It's going to drive us to the ground. Don't do the massive tariffs. And Hoover was really reticent to do government spending. The idea of the Keynesian model had not really been embraced yet. FDR embraced that, the idea of spending government money, prime the pump, get the economy going. So he does it. He doesn't care, Hoover, and boom, you're in a depression. And this is like, if you're building a stew of depression, Trump has got a lot of the elements there. The one thing I must say, Ali, that saves us a little bit, there was no FDIC. So when those banks failed, people lost everything. You know, it wasn't FDR did not create the FDIC till years later. Think about that. If you had bank failures and your money's gone, you hit a real depression. I mean, thank God we have a safety net.
Maybe Trump's betting on the fact that he is that good a deal maker, that, you know, when you set your tariffs at 90%, you'll come to some negotiation. But I still don't know where it gets us, because generally speaking with tariffs, so I'll give you a Canadian example. I grew up in Canada. You can't grow oranges in Canada, right? The climate just isn't suitable. So in theory, you would say, don't put tariffs on oranges, because then it's just too expensive and you can't make them yourself anyway. But you might say, we grow apples in Canada, so maybe we want to encourage people to have apple juice and apple pies instead of orange. So you do put a tariff on, at least that's the debate, right? The debate is, do you put a tariff on an orange or don't you? We don't have anything like that. I'd love to hear, we want to bring some manufacturing back for chip manufacturing, right? Semiconductors. We learned in COVID, because of those supply chain problems, semiconductors go into everything, telephones, dishwashers, cars, everything. And supply chains were disrupted, so the prices of all those things went up, right? So yeah, we should have semiconductor manufacturing in America, and that's what the CHIPS Act was. We were actually doing that. But it takes years, because you got to get the investment. People have to build factories. You have to figure out do we have the labor force for it? Do we have to train the labor force for it? How much will they earn per hour? We're not thinking about any of this stuff. If you put tariffs on Lesotho, we don't actually want jobs sewing T-shirts in America. It wouldn't get you to a $12 or $15 minimum wage even, right? But we do want semiconductor jobs. Think the policy through first, then use tariffs to achieve what you want after attempting negotiations with other countries. We've done the whole thing backwards, and Trump's just hoping it works out. And if it doesn't, Dean, we could be paying the price for this for a decade or longer, and the whole world will be paying the price for it.
And last two things, Ali. One is economic, and just one is a bigger picture thing. You know, different people predicting we could be hitting a recession. I've seen some people on CNBC say we're actually in a recession. You're not going to know until the data it's trailing indicators, so we'll know a little bit longer. What do you think? What will be the first signs that we're in technically really what a recession is?
Layoffs. When companies put their money where their mouth is. So right now you got bank CEOs and finance CEOs saying we might be in a recession. When companies think, so it's always better to, if you're a company, to lay people off because they'll be available to hire back, generally speaking, right? Than to be stuck with people on your payroll. So when companies start laying people off, and their companies that track this on a monthly basis and saying, we don't know what the future holds, so we're going to start laying people off, it's contagious. And then you start seeing those layoffs. What happens when people get laid off? They can't spend money. Other people get scared that they're going to get laid off, so they stop spending money, and everything just drives to a halt. You then start seeing fewer people go to movies, fewer people go to restaurants, fewer people take vacations. Then you see layoffs in the tourism industry, which you're going to see already because of these tariffs. And that's how you figure out a recession. A recession it's a real thing, but it's born of a feeling. Right? It's when businesses and individuals do not feel confident about the future of their economy, which the Michigan Sentiment Index, Consumer Confidence Index, demonstrated a few weeks ago. Americans are really worried. Interestingly enough, they're worried about prices, then they're worried about the cost of housing, then they're worried about their job. I think only 6% were worried about their job because our unemployment level is so low. And by the way, we're throwing out all these immigrants. Americans are not yet worried about their jobs. The minute that light switch flips and they start worrying about their jobs, what would you do if you thought you were losing your job? You'd stop spending.
Sure.
Right? There'd be no taxis. There'd be no Starbucks. You make your coffee at home and you walk, you take the bus. That's what's going to start to happen.
I don't go to Starbucks.
I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't.
Right. No.
Because if it happens right now with high inflation, if it's not terribly high, but if it happens with inflation, again, you can't fix it. If we didn't have inflation like we haven't had, you just drop interest rates, government puts some money in, you can fix the recession. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year, but you can actually fix it. This is not a good time for us to have a recession.
No, and 70% of our GDP is consumer spending. So the minute consumers pull back, but also government spending is one of the components of the GDP, and you got Trump slashing that crazily. So sadly, we're going to be a recession. I just hope it's a soft one, not a painful one. Very last thing, we're almost at 100 days of this nightmare. I call it the worst 100 days, not the first 100 days. What stands out for you when you look back?
Well, what stands out for me is it may be that all this craziness is happening because it's the first 100 days. In other words, this is the honeymoon period for every president. And at some point, I mean, Republicans, those with the backbone to actually hold town hall meetings, are getting shouted down. Like, people don't like this stuff. Veterans don't like it. People don't like the fact that you're giving $5 trillion in tax cuts, but you're cutting you're also cutting almost $1 trillion in Medicaid. Like, tell me how that makes sense. Yeah. So at some point, somebody in Congress, we only need like 5 of them, will grow a backbone and say, this is just really bad. And Ted Cruz says the other day, it's going to be a bloodbath in the midterms if this continues. At some point, the honeymoon's going to wear off, maybe, and the cult is going to break. But I don't know. At some point, Elon Musk's number of days he can work in the government runs out. I think they're doing it all because they can at the moment.
Right. I mean, for what it's worth, Musk just said, I don't know if it's true or not, that he's going to be stepping back to go more with Tesla because their earnings came out tonight. They were very not good.
He needs to pay attention to his company.
Bad. Yeah. So he needs to go. But the Doge people might just be there doing all the cutting and stuff. Well, Ali, my friend, thank you so much. And are you on Blue Sky? You're on Blue Sky, aren't you? I can't remember where you are.
Yeah.
I follow you. I follow you everywhere. Wherever you go, I follow Ali Velshi. It's CNN, Al Jazeera, MSNBC, Blue Sky. I'm always following. Check out Velshi Saturday and Sunday morning, 10 a.m. to noon. And starting May 3rd, it goes the third hour. Is it till 1 o'clock or is it 9 a.m.?
Correct. Yeah. 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. starting May 3rd.
Wow. They're getting ready for you to work 12,
I'm almost got to work as hard as you. Almost.
All right. Thank you, Ali. Thanks so much for being on, brother. It's great seeing you.
Thanks, buddy. All right.